two with, I think, super interesting panel. Yesterday in the opening, I hinted at the importance of coastal restoration and some of the threats that we're facing here in Miami and Florida, right? With sea level rises and
Thanks.
climate change, the loss of coastlines. And I also hinted at the fact that it's not all doom and gloom, that change is always possible in both directions, right? And our coastlines are so important to preserve land, right, for biodiversity, for fishing and hatching grounds. And here in this panel today, we have various experts that found some innovative solutions and found some really cool ways we can tackle some of these problems. So that's what we're doing today. I'm gonna have them introduce themselves. They're all gonna get about 7 to 8 minutes to kind of do a pitch of what they're doing, what the solution is, and then we'll open it up for some discussion and questions and talk. Sounds good? So let's start right here.
I'm going to start with a song.
All right.
I'm Dr. T.H. Culhane from the University of South Florida's Patel College of Global Sustainability. I'm going to put the timer on right now. There we go. And to run this through, let's just start with something that may shock you. Here we go. And you can snap your fingers or tap your feet. I'll just way to raise the volume.
It's a very loud idea.
Okay. What we have at this place called the Rosebud Continuum Eco Science Center up in Land Lakes, Florida, associated with our university, are shredders, grinders, and granulators that turn 100% of our domestic garbage into value. You shred, you grind, and you granulate. If you want to help us avoid a frightful fate, you shred, you grind, and you granulate. It's such a simple concept. We're all foolish when we don't. You don't have to be a Superman to save the world at home. That's not Elon Musk. Don't wait. So there's a plethora of products on the market that are used for other things. Like this is your garbage disposal, which we brought down to Brazil. That's my baby, which we brought into the world. And that's all of our domestic garbage. Even his diapers contribute to our off-grid paradise at the Rosebud Continuum Eco Science Center. And in these very brief moments that I have here, if I can get this to work, I want to show you slides of how this is actually working. And I'm going to go through the slides at 30 frames per second, so it'll feel like a movie. This one here. So evolution developed teeth and jaws. Dun, 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 dun. And at that point in the Silurian Devonian epochs of our history on the Earth, macromolecules could be broken down into micromolecules that the nano world could process efficiently into value so that there was an explosion of life forms. And then we came along and started producing more macromolecules than nature could accommodate. But then we invented machines. And when you have machines like a garbage disposal or food grinder, you can eliminate 100% with a very low energy investment all of the organic residuals, either pre-consumer, post-consumer. We're talking about restaurants, cafeterias. This, for the tourism industry, this is a great boon because we know that food waste has been considered the third largest contributor to greenhouse gases if it were considered a country, right? It's like, but it's the low-hanging fruit, literally and figuratively. If we can eliminate the food waste problem, the landfill problem kind of goes away in terms of greenhouse gas contributions because the other stuff is just going to sit there. And yes, it'll take a long time to break down, but it's the food waste, it's the organic that's releasing these greenhouse gases that makes it such a threat. And when you break them down with mechanical grinding, and that was the, so we have a big biodigester, but we break it down and all the food waste buckets that we bring from restaurants and cafeterias on campus, we're just grinding it on site with the sink grinder out in a wash tub, and then bringing them up, and then we're dumping it into these biodigesters that we've built by ourselves out of concrete. And these biodigesters, which we call domestic dragons, then turn it into fertilizer, liquid fertilizer, for our gardens and greenhouses, and into biogas, which we store in balloons, and we used to do cookouts for the students. It's so simple. I mean, a biodigester is just a tank with 3 pipes in it, literally. That's all it is. It can be made out of anything. So I've been bringing these food grinders all over the world You can see me in Botswana and Kenya and Mount Everest and with the Maasai. I carry them in the overhead. The TSA loves me bringing these things through on the bus. And then in Cairo, we set them up and eliminated a problem where rats were killing children because there was food waste all over the place. And so we had to do something. So we brought food grinders, and that ended the rat problem. They're not interested. No flies, no roaches, no vermin whatsoever. You grind the food, it oxidizes and hydrolyzes so quickly, it turns into soil in 3 to 6 days if you can get it near soil microbes. 3 to 6 days, not 3 to 6 months. So it's the compost companion. I've been doing it at the Chamero Eco Village, and I built another biodigester out of an old water tank. I mean, they're easy to build, biodigesters, my gosh. And what we did find in Tamara, that if you just grind the food and just spill it on the garden, you can grow fantastic vegetables without a compost bin. So the grinding is what does the magic, because it puts the teeth back. There we are in the newspaper making biodigesters out of old water tanks in the slums of Cairo. And this is the guy whose niece was killed by rats during a time when the garbage wasn't being picked up. And so he's smiling now because there's never any garbage to deal with, no smell or anything. We brought them even to President Obasanjo in Nigeria, had it in his home, and then we built a biodigester in his backyard, and he was like, my God, we could have solved the cholera problem because we also put toilet waste in these digesters as a good source of microbes. So 100% of toilet waste and food waste is now turned into fuel and fertilizer in a healthy, clean way. You can see us dealing with the food waste problem in Moisés, the favela in Brazil, building 3 big biodigesters like the ones I showed you that we have in Land Lakes, Florida, at a school to turn all of the toilet waste and food waste into fuel and fertilizer. And then InSinkErator got involved, and the guy, Julio, flew down from Sao Paulo with a gift of food grinders for the community. We built a bicycle grinder for places there weren't any electricity, because you can pedal it with 1,200 RPM, which is enough to break down everything except bones. And so we deployed that in Haiti and in Egypt. And then in Palestine, we built biodigesters out of pickle barrels. That's my wife. When she was in Israel studying, we brought this pickle barrel into her dorm in Israel, and she made her tea every morning from her garbage, from her banana peels and stuff. It's just so simple. It's hard for me to even, until you've come and lived it, and you should come visit us in Land O'Lakes, all of that food waste, and the tea bags, and the paper towels, and the paper plates, all the compostables except those little cups, which can't be digested easily. All of them get into our grinder and even into our biodigester. But then there's commercial biodigesters that our Israeli friends at Home Biogas have been selling around the world. They set up in an hour, and then they work forever. I don't know how long the plastic will last. And then we've built them out of 55-gallon drums as well. So you can build biodigesters out of anything, but then you grind and you shred. But here's a thing we did, a test for several months. If you just grind and you just pour the ground food waste on a plastic treatment like this, it'll sit there for 3 to 6 months. No flies, no roaches, no problems. And this is meat, dairy, this is everything all ground together. But if you inoculate it with 1 handful of soil, it will turn into soil in 3 to 6 days. So we're really, and you can see paper cups in there that we're doing, and it turns into this kind of soil. It's amazing how quickly it works. Look, Dad, no flies, no roaches, no cats, no rats, no dogs, no chickens, no smells, no nada. And then, yeah, so you can see the right treatment is the soil, and the left one is just sitting there, and that's the grind over there. So we've gone all over the world with this idea. Even in Chicago Airport, they say grind virtually any kind of food waste into an unending source of electrical power for a city. It's never done before. Consider it solved back there. That's Emerson Electronics. This was 12 years ago, and we've been working with them ever since. So, but the other thing is, once you've got all your food waste gone and everything's really clean, and I guess I've got like 60 seconds left, when you have everything clean, you have clean plastic, clean metal, clean cardboard, because you've eliminated all the food waste. So what we do is we shred and we grind it with these precious plastic shredders. That's one of my students working with the small one. Everything is particularized so that all of the volume is reduced to nothing. And once you have all these plastics, and I don't care, 1 through 7, the Mylar chips bags, the candy wrappers, doesn't matter what it is, it can all be turned into pressed board using a lignin or water glass glue base, or it can be, and these are some of the panels that we're making, you can see all the plastics embedded in that matrix, or it can be turned into, and these are our shredders, and there's a glass crusher that we have for all our bottles, no label removal, and we turn it into sculptures. So we made this black bear, and we have molds to make paving stones. Little kids get involved. we've made a panther, we've made a tortoise, we've made a bear, and now we're making other wildlife iconic sculptures and beautiful paving stones. And so 100% of our food waste is taken care of at our facility, 100% of our plastic and our glass, 100%, so it's not asymptotic, and we've eliminated all our waste and everything is turned into value. I hope we can get this into the tourism industry, because I imagine a time when every resort you go to says, yes, bring on the packaging, bring on the bottles and cans, bring on the plastic, bring on the food waste. The tourists pay for that to come in, and what's left over is now residuals that can be made into high-value product. That is our dream and our goal. We'll eliminate the problem of ocean contamination and landfill. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So on to our second presenter. Same idea, same speed, but no.
Good luck following that.
Sorry, I'm just closing.
Dave, do you want to introduce yourself real quick while we pull it up?
Sure, I'm Dave Randall with the Blue Community Consortium. Chris Harris here, is one of our team members, Carter Henning and Doug Hesse.
You can clap.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just moving a little slow. Everyone can see that?
Yeah.
I did the right.
So Dave, you just have to press the right.
I can do that for you.
Okay. Great, all right, so we've just converted these from Keynote to PowerPoint, so we're not sure how the alignment's going to work, but we'll do what we can. So really happy to be here. Our program actually started with a week with the UN International Strategies for Disaster Reduction offices in New York, and getting ideas of what you need to do to best mitigate. And they said, when you go away from this conference, remember one thing. It doesn't matter if you're trying to prevent a disaster, mitigate a disaster, or recover a disaster. The answer is the same: increase the sustainability. So that's actually what we were doing. And then we began working with the Walt Disney Company. Disney, some of you may know, never wanted to have a theme park at Walt Disney World. It was supposed to be a city. This is the model of what the city is. And there's a long story how they got the theme parks. But we were meeting with their animal science and environment team saying, let's take Disney's dream of showcasing future technologies and apply that to sustainability. So we thought we could do that. They have 112 countries they're working in around the world. And so we enlisted the help of Tinkerbell and Little Pixie Dust and started on our way. And we really got our breakthrough in this resort here, Villages Nature. Villages Nature was recognized by the UN Environment Program as the most sustainable resort in the world. It's just outside of Paris, but they have zero carbon through geothermal and solar, and using electric solar vehicles for transportation, community. They never take any water out of the aquifer. They source 28% of their food locally, no matter what the growing season is. They focus on cultural heritage, local sustainable materials, and quality of life and well-being is the theme of what they're trying to do. And they are really creating a new model for the world to build sustainably. That was the conference here that we had, the grand opening ceremonies, where we were asked then to assess, okay, UN says they're most sustainable, what are some metrics to prove it? So they used the Blue Community assessment to find that they were, in fact, there. Now we define sustainability a little bit different. A lot of models try to say we take the social, the economic, the environmental, and we try to balance them. But that really doesn't work. We believe you really have to have the biosphere or the environment at the foundation, because if you don't have a sustainable environment, you'll never have a sustainable society. And without a sustainable society, you'll never have a sustainable economy. And it actually fits quite well with the UN Sustainable Development Goals as well. Our own model, the Blue Community Model, we use the 4 pillars of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council to create just and sustainable society and a safe place for humanity with economic development, but all within the limits of the 9 planetary boundaries. We also use a model from our colleagues, One Planet Living, that built the Village Nature Resort. And basically, what they said to them, if everybody lived like they do in Europe, where this resort is, it would take 3 planet Earths to sustain that lifestyle. And of course, if we live like we do in the United States, we need 5 planet Earths to live that kind of lifestyle. So their challenge was to design, build, and operate a new resort with the equivalent of only 1 planet of resources. And they did it. And so that's why they got the recognition that they did. And you can see worldwide, most countries are not doing very well, and the US is one of the worst. We then worked with the Disney Animal Science Environment team to create 12 strategies that Disney was using themselves that were replicable from a small bed and breakfast all the way up to a Walt Disney World, and were cost effective. Now, when we had the criteria for cost effective, they laughed at me and said, we don't do anything here that's not cost effective. They won't let us. There's some laws for that too, so that was a given. And then also within the science of the 9 planetary boundaries. I'm not going to talk about the planetary boundaries now, but something you can look on the internet and see. So in brief time, I just want to share a couple examples of how these 12 strategies are getting put into practice. One is our Conch Republic Marine Army, just down the Keys here, not far from there. They started literally with 6 neighbors after the hurricane, and they decided to start doing cleanup. That has now expanded to over 4,300 volunteers, and they removed 2 million feet of trap line. They recovered 91 refrigerators. I mean, it's amazing what they've done. But the biggest thing they've done, in my mind, is they found a way that while simultaneously doing the cleanup, they could also plant new mangroves for restoration. So that's a kind of a great program. Our program START, which is solutions to avoid red tide, has developed a new stormwater system that filters 40% of the nitrates that were going into Sarasota Bay out of the bay now, and they've been doing that. Plant a Million Corals, another one of our partners, has found a new process where they've reduced coral planting from $200 a coral to $10 a coral. And they send these kits all over the world, and they're custom made for what kind of ocean you have, what kind of area you have, that you can replant corals anywhere in the world. Xanadu Resort, our partner in monolithic construction, monolithic domes, built this resort. They took a direct hit from Hurricane Keith, and not only were all the people staying there safe, employees safe, but people in the community had nowhere to go, were safe as well. And there's all kinds of designs you can do with this. This is one here we did for the city of Key West. This is an example of a hotel using this construction. This is a hotel conference center that this is a project I designed. This one here is a grant from FEMA. And FEMA says this home is near absolute protection. What they mean by that is 100% fireproof, 100% tornado proof, 100% insect proof, 100% earthquake proof, not 100% hurricane proof, but can withstand hurricanes to 300 miles an hour. So pretty close to hurricane proof. And you can see in this picture here, MSNBC and CNN were staying in this house during Hurricane Ivan, and everything around it was totally obliterated, but they were fine. Had no problem at all. Now, cost-wise, there's no difference in cost from conventional construction up to 2,000 square feet. After 2,000 square feet, it becomes exponentially less. So a church that was destroyed from a hurricane got bids, conventional 3.8, 4.1, 4.3 million. They got the monolithic bid at 2 million. So, and then of course you save on insurance, and it's energy efficient and so forth. This is a red tide benefit. We did the long table on the beach, 150 people at that table. Robinson Preserve, a project we worked with in Manatee County, has turned farmland, dilapidated farmland, into wetlands. And it's now the second most visited tourist attraction in Manatee County, second only to Moat Marine. And it's going to pass Moat Marine if the numbers keep going the way it is. We've worked with Disney and the Tour de Turtles. This is Tampa Bay Watch in the right-hand corner at the top. And we've got water management. I wanted to highlight that part of it. This little room here, which looks like a Star Trek, control panel where you're driving the spaceship, they actually control the water from every single theme park and hotel in all Walt Disney World from this little room here. And it's just amazing. They can punch on the screen and it'll blow up like Animal Kingdom. They punch into Animal Kingdom, it blows up Collie Rapids. They punch on Collie Rapids, it shows you the water quality, the turbidity, and pollution, and so forth. But there's simpler ways. You can just collect rainwater, like they're doing in Plenary Island here. And you can have permeable walkways. Collecting the rainwater and having permeable walkways and indigenous landscaping, those three factors reduce the runoff and flooding 50%. So my time is about up, so I'm going to just fast forward a little bit through these to the end here. This one here I wanted to show you. This is what's happening right here in Miami. Going back in the 60s up there, we had about 80 days of 90-degree weather and higher in Miami. Now we're up to over 130. Wow. And that's increasing. There's all kinds of solutions. I won't go into those. I'll just highlight the Aptura. This is coming out this year. Solar electric car up to 1,000-mile range, powered by solar energy in the panels. We're doing a project with Key West that, this is where I'll end, that includes analysis and objective setting using the small island dashboards, training, visioning programs we've integrated from NASA. We have a certificate program through UCF that incorporates all the training and support for it. And we create a shared vision with the community. And I'll stop right there because my time is up.
Thank you. All right, come on up. Who's next?
Carter.
Is that me? Awesome.
Go Carter.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Carter Henning. I own and operate a private marine restoration. Okay. Perfect. So one of the things that we do is we add capacity to local governments and local not-for-profits, folks that see something in their community that's gone awry, and we bring in skills, we bring in just different ideas on how to sustainably deal with constant threats of hurricanes, natural disasters, flooding, and really try to adapt nature-based solutions. And so what I want to do is talk just a couple minutes on how we see projects move through in a sustainable way and how to ramp up good ideas and projects, and then a little bit of the toolkit on how to accomplish it. This is what we call internally the sustainability cycle, right? How do you get a project, how do you get an idea, how do you get a program to continue? Well, you start with a problem, right? Everyone thinks that someone else is going to fix the problem, but it also takes a local community, an advocate, just to start. Bring people together, recognize what the problem is, and then start addressing it. When you address a problem, benefits are realized. When benefits are realized, bringing in other collaborators, bringing in other teammates, bringing a diverse group around that collaboration, funding will occur, right? Funding only occurs when you started to address the problem and the benefits are realized. And it's a cycle, and we've seen it repeated for many, many different times on many different restoration and enhancement projects. So, nature-based solutions, do they work? This is a project that we worked on where it was a community that was wholly dependent on manatee ecotourism. The manatees were having issues because of the grass that was there, that their forage was disappearing. And this algae was coming in. It's an invasive algae called Lingia woollei. So what we did is we vacuum dredged using local labor the bottoms to hard mineralized sediment, and then we planted native plants. And the water quality when we first started, you could see about 2 to 3 feet. So the people that were coming to the local community to swim with the manatees were not having a great experience. And the manatees would leave outside in the winter time. They would only be there in the winter and not in the summer because they had no food. And what we realized as the project developed is manatees stayed year-round, the ecotourism became year-round, the water quality went from 2 to 3 feet to 20 to 30 feet, and the state and county and local folks raised $40 million to implement the project, and it's generated over $2 billion worth of economic returns for the region. This is in Citrus County. Citrus County stopped marketing everything else except for Kings Bay and manatees to bring in tourism. So nature-based solutions, what are some of the nature-based solutions that we love to employ is environmental dredging, seagrass restoration. Seagrass filters water quality, it stabilizes sediments on the seafloor, and it also filters out a lot of bacteria that's in the water. Oyster clam filtration. One oyster can filter about 50 gallons of water a day, depending on where it's at. Bivalves are incredibly important to clear water. Nobody wants to swim in dirty water. And dirty water, clean water is not a Republican or a Democrat issue, it's a humanity issue, right? This is apolitical, everyone wants clean water. And a lot of natural stormwater filtration through submerged aquatic planting. That's what we do below the water line. Above the water line, in a lot of oyster reef restoration, so we recycle a lot of oyster shells from restaurants and use those to protect other vulnerable shorelines. We do a lot of living shoreline restoration to stabilize the banks to protect property values. In the state of Florida, if a shoreline is planted with mangrove, some insurance companies will recognize that as a benefit and reduce premiums to the local homeowner. And riprap, one thing that is new to the industry that's starting to really take off is wave attenuation devices that are concrete structures that are placed offshore, so you can still have swimming, you can still have natural environment, you can still have snorkeling behind it and have a great shore instead of protecting right at the shoreline. So another example, we did in partnership with Martin County, Florida. Land is at a premium in Martin County, and they were trying to reduce their stormwater nutrients into the Indian River Lagoon. And we did a small planting project for them. It was like a $50,000 project. And that $50,000 project cycled more nutrient, or the equivalent nutrients as a new $5 million stormwater retention area. So what you can do is maximize the area that you currently have, the current footprint that you already have, and enhance it with just different nature-based solutions, creating far better results and reducing overall costs. And that project won the Florida Stormwater Association Award 2 years ago. So again, does it work? And this is guidelines from the Army Corps of Engineers Engineering with Nature team, looking at different scenarios between coral, seagrass, and mangrove restoration. And as you can see in the slides, it goes from 70 all the way down to 10% reduction in wave height with these different nature-based solutions. So the sustainability cycle and nature-based solutions, it starts with a problem, A nature-based solution, who benefits? These are real tangible benefits to local communities, private industry with cheaper implementation costs, local governments through increased tax base, regional community by tourism coming into the community as opposed to going somewhere else, similar communities. So different islands that are different situations where you may have beach coastal communities in one area. If that area can be fixed with clean water, other benefits, other communities will benefit. Think about sargassum, algae blooms on a lot of coastal tourism. An algae bloom in one area will affect other areas when it comes to adaptation for tourism planning. And overall, the environment wins by using environmental. And how do they benefit? Water quality, biodiversity, increased investment with cleaner water. Housing values will fluctuate about 30% based on whether an area is prone to harmful algal blooms. Workforce development, we hire local folks, and our team usually are people that would be doing development or other non-environmentally beneficial things. So workforce development increases the tax base and just overall infrastructure resiliency. So with that, I just thank you for your time and your interest in these issues.
Chris?
Awesome.
Sam, you can use the clicker.
There we go. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Chris Harris, and I'm here to introduce a paradigm shift. I think it's very important for us all to reframe the problem of plastics. In fact, any carbon-based material represents a new future for all of us. I think many of us understand that ocean plastic, as well as all of the plastic in our world now, is not just a daunting threat and a real concern, but something that causes a lot of us stress. I've been tapped to attend the United Nations World Tourism Organization Plastics Initiative, and I hear quite a lot about sort of the formative structure of how to deal with so much of our garbage: reduce, reuse, recycle. This is the right start, but I think if we take just a moment, we can reframe this as a real opportunity. With new technology, rather than simply recycling, we can see all of this plastic, all of this carbon-based garbage as an energy future. Not only can we create diesel through the process of pyrolysis, but we can also create biochar for fertilization. We can create local energy and electricity. We can also, with some of the newer technology coming out, with some of these, well, with any of these, we can create high-value products, graphene and other nanomaterials that present a new future of technology and also high-tech jobs. You know, the truth of the project is that none of this is really waste until we actually waste it. And for that, we need to understand how to use it to the best of our ability. There are several things in our world that pose terrible environmental problems. Tires in several cities, when they just simply burn them to get rid of them. You know, one of our colleagues at Vortex, Vortex is the group that I work with on pyrolysis, they send shredded tires by the tons, by the hundreds and thousands of tons overseas to China so that they can burn it in an unregulated environment to create electricity. And they burn it straight without any kind of emissions regard. Car fluff is all of the foam and the mixed plastics that we wind up, all of these non-metal pieces of a car. Car fluff is one of the most pernicious and difficult sources of waste to deal with in the waste industry. Coal fines is the dust that is left over in a coal mine when they have very little application for this, but also when raw crude oil is transferred and transported, the bottom, what is settled in the bottom of the tank after a long journey, is not usable. It's not easily pumped out. But all of these can be source of energy, new nanomaterials. They can be the source of new plastics, to mention just a few of the applications. This is what we call the waste engine, and this is a village scale pyrolysis machine. Pyrolysis is a practice of taking plastics and other carbons and not burning them, but reducing them, gasifying these in an oxygen-free environment so that the materials separate and they turn to a gaseous state, and then through condensation they are brought into a more primary form. And these large hydrocarbons, when they're done directly, they can create a very clean sulfur-free synthetic oil that we can use in the car. But then those synthetic oils are the backbone of all kinds of other solvents, diesel fuel, what we call drop-in diesel, that is seamless with the energy environment that we know now, and they can run cars with even less emissions. This machine here has the capacity, I'll tell you at the end, but it has capacity for several tons of garbage a day, and we can use mixed plastics together. They don't have to be cleaned, they don't have to be sorted. There are several things in the waste stream process that make it rather difficult to be highly conscious about what we're doing with our waste. And newer technology, including the waste engine, eliminates several of the really problematic steps in being a good citizen of the earth, to reduce all of this to a usable resource has become much more simple. So we can use any hydrocarbon material, and this actually ventures into several things that we would consider toxic waste, and it has extraordinary unit economics. That is, it's got a strong payback where this machine and this technology can open an energy future for especially the small islands, where our Blue Community Consortium has been tapped to consult and work with small island developing states. They are confronting so many problems, but this plastic washing up on their shores, this plastic that is offshore and coming into their island economies, can be a source of a new future. And so if we all can just take a moment and imagine that truly plastic can be a source of empowerment for several of these threatened communities. And I'll now move on from plastics to another project. I apologize. I'm going through that in the interest of time to another extraordinary project I'm working on. I'll show you this little circuit board. This little circuit board represents all of what is required, almost all of what is required, to create an emissions-free vehicle. If any of you have worked on a motorcycle, you know that there's sort of a rat's nest of wires and whatnot that is a very confusing project if you're a motorcycle mechanic. We've reduced all of this to a circuit board. And this is a plug-and-play, what we call a plug-and-play, very easy to access, very easy to assemble electric vehicle. So we've got this project. This vehicle here is what we call the Sunzy Car Eco Trike. This is a solar-powered, zero-emissions vehicle. This is my friend, Dr. Andy Schoenberg. I worked with Andy for about 5 years. Every year we would create a new vehicle, and it was improved continuously over the course of 10 years. 20 years he actually worked on it. 10 years he had a new registered vehicle that was insurable, that had a VIN number, and it had a license plate. And it was fantastic, but clearly it's a prototype. This isn't a very marketable vehicle. We call it the 450, I call it the 450. It's about 450 pounds, but it also can transport 450 pounds. That's 2 adults and their groceries. And the amazing thing about this electrical circuit is that it gets about 450 miles per gallon in the electric equivalent of a gallon of gasoline. But the 450 theme extends to 50-mile range. It's a 50-mile per hour vehicle. The battery is a 50 volt. They call it a 48 volt, but it's a 50 volt battery. And when you plug it into the wall, not a high-powered, high-speed charger, when you plug it into any of these outlets, it costs about 50 cents in electricity. So the 450 is the vehicle that we've been working on for quite a while. And we're confronted with the problem, what do we do with that prototype? Well, the electric circuit is the part that is the winning component. So, working with this gentleman, who actually worked with Dr. Schoenberg on the artificial heart, this is David Jones. He created the first successful pump for the artificial heart. And he developed this into a circuit board, and we're iterating constantly on this circuit board now. But what do we do with this? So I encourage all of you to go to our website, ELUVKITS. ELOVE stands for Electric Light Urban Vehicles. And the ELOVE kit is something that we are using to pose a design challenge. Starting February 9th, we'll be working with our team at ENSO Education to create a collaborative, crowdsourced platform and a community to iterate on these vehicles, whether it's a scooter, whether it's a motorcycle, whether it's a tuk-tuk. We would love to create industry by empowering a community of inventors, marketers, engineers, and business people to create the future of emissions-free vehicles. But not just from Elon Musk. We want this to come from a groundswell of committed, environmentally minded people from around the world where we can collaborate. So small teams working from diverse backgrounds. We have teams now from Jamaica, Uganda, Ghana, and Venezuela, as well as the United States. You'll find a place to leave your email and contact us at eLoveKits. Again, my name's Chris Harris. Thank you so much for your interest. And
Chris, did you have the clicker?
I think I left it there.
It's
here.
on the job.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It is wonderful to be here. I just got off of a 6-hour flight from Northern California. So I'm a little weary this morning after spending a few days out there. I wanted to start this morning by talking about something that Chris just mentioned. And this is this idea of citizen action, civic engagement. And we as a group, and all of us that are sitting on this panel this morning, have done a lot of work over the last couple of years in communicating to individuals and institutions how they can make substantial change. There we go. My name is Doug Heskey. I am the CEO and founder of New Day Impact, otherwise known as New Day Financial Technologies. We were an organization that was founded in San Francisco, California, but most recently moved the business to New York City to expand our presence, not just domestically, but in global markets as well. My history is that I've spent 2.5 decades working in the impact investment markets, mostly for larger organizations like Stifel Nicolaus and Piper Jaffray, where I led their impact investment group. Over that history, I and my colleagues, noticed that there were some fundamental changes that needed to be made in the business. The first was that individuals, particularly individuals with lower levels of financial affluence and influence, didn't have the same types of opportunities to align those things that they cared most about with their financial and investment strategy. The second piece is an issue that we very much still suffer from today. in both corporate America and in the financial services business. And that is the greenwashing issue, social washing, blue washing issue, whatever you want to call it. And foundationally, the problem all has to do with data. And for many organizations that are delivering data that major investment organizations are making decisions around is flawed. It's self-reported data that is furnished through sustainability reports that are published by major organizations. And what do? They tell you what you want to hear, right? And so we as an organization are trying to address fundamentally those issues. We have for the last 8 years, and I want to talk about what we do as an organization, how we do it, why we do it. But foundationally, what we're trying to do is to bridge the chasm between awareness and action. Something critically important today, because individuals seldom think about their small carbon footprints and the impact of those small carbon footprints on our communities and the planet. But we have a responsibility today as a society that every single one of us needs to be stepping up in aggregate and making change. So we, over the course of the last years, or the last 8 years since starting the organization, have been doing a couple of things. We have been carefully building relationships with what we describe as impact-first institutional capital funders. These are major family offices, founders of Alphabet, Google, of Oracle, individuals like Jim Sorensen, who runs the Sorensen Impact Center out of Utah. And the definition of impact first is that these organizations say we will provide capital and sacrifice financial returns as long as we're getting impact returns alongside that. And we as an organization have a belief that if you're making great investment decisions, investing in companies that are really trying to change the world, your returns over the long term are going to be better or outperform market indices. And the reason is that it all has to do with this idea of owning great companies. What do great companies do? Great companies leave a lasting impact on the communities in which they're living and operating in. They build extraordinary wealth for their shareholders. They have a stakeholder type mentality, not just a shareholder type mentality in building their businesses. And these, in some circumstances, tech titans, leaders in the technology world, have said, we want to provide capital into a set of investment strategies to allow others to participate alongside. And that strategy has been great for the growth of our organization, because we've grown very, very quickly, partly as a result of the people that we're working with and their reputations. The other piece of it is that we knew as a young organization that if we were going to drive the change that we really wanted to see, we needed to partner with people that know best about allocation of capital. And we refer to these individuals and their organizations as impact icons.
This planet has filled me with the wonder of all living things, great and small. When nature suffers, we suffer. And when nature flourishes, we all flourish.
1 teaspoon of soil has more organisms than there are humans on this planet. Yet by 2050, the UN predicts that 90% of our agricultural soils will be degraded, leading to food crisis and global famine.
For the last 40 years, we've lost half the world's biodiversity. 90% of the world's large-scale animals, whales, sharks, etc., have disappeared.
What we're dealing with all the time is more and more development and more nutrient loading into our coastal estuaries. So the number one issue that we're working about is coastal resiliency using biological mitigation strategies around bivalves and seagrass.
As a young girl, I used to walk 3 hours to fetch water with my grandmother and cousin goats. So from then, I decided to use my platform to help create change, to build sustainable water system so that water is uninterrupted in their community.
Earth Echo International is a global youth environmental education organization rooted in the belief that young people have the power to change the world. What keeps me going and gives me such optimism in the world is working with young people and seeing the determination, seeing the optimism that they are focused on solutions and on building a better world and that it's possible.
The George Ibadiel Foundation is proud to collaborate with New Day to create change in my community. New Day changes the way of investing by creating a direct impact with the community we work with.
Creating a portfolio where investing becomes impactful and mainstream.
$30 to $45 trillion that is going to be shifting generationally over the next decade or so is an extraordinary opportunity to drive resources into the types of businesses and companies that can renew and enhance the health of our planet and people. And that's really what we get excited about. New Day is an investment opportunity for those new investors out there to think about, wow, I can change the world with the dollars I'm investing.
New Day is something that we can point to work with, to try to build this movement, to show people how they can support, how they can invest, how they can participate in these businesses that are making change.
I do believe in the possibility of a world where we can live in harmony with nature, but only if every one of us does our part to make that world a reality, so that when you look back over your journey, your life, you can truly say, I did make a difference.
So you'll note the last tagline, 3 pathways for impact that we have adopted as an organization. Getting informed, getting involved, and getting invested. Those 3 pathways in the work that we do are absolutely essential relative to engagement. And sometimes people think of us historically as an institutional asset management organization that are managing public equity portfolios around 6 impact pillars: climate action, quality air, clean water and ocean health, sustainable soil and regeneration, human equity, and biodiversity. The philosophy that we've embraced as an organization is that those 6 pillars are absolutely essential and they are intersectional. Nature doesn't parse those out, nor do we. And so we, in our investment philosophy, build holistic portfolios around those issues. But we do so much more than that as well. What we're doing with our partners, some of them on stage here today, are building market-based solutions to drive real change. So relative to coastal restoration and resilience, we've got partnership with Sea and Shoreline and Blue Community Consortium. We are raising capital for pilot programs in Florida right now that we expect over the course of the next couple of years will expand to other international marketplaces. We are working with the Cousteaus on what is a campaign around addressing overfishing or harvesting of krill in the Southern Ocean and advocating for the creation of new marine protected areas in Antarctica as well. How does that tie into our investment business? Well, we run an ocean health portfolio, and in that portfolio, we hold companies that are the largest distributors of krill-based nutraceuticals And we, through our advocacy work, are working with the Cousteaus and others in getting those organizations to reduce shelf space and how they're distributing krill-based nutraceuticals and replace those with algae-based nutraceuticals. And there are a whole variety of other tactics that we embrace to drive change. So we're working from a capital perspective on a variety of different fronts. We understand that charitable capital is absolutely essential to support organizations that are doing the work that they and only they can do from a grassroots perspective. Organizations like Jane Goodall Institute, Save Soil and Conscious Planet, Earth Echo International, which is the Cousteau organization, and the Georgie Bedell Foundation. And this is a representation of a larger set of partnerships that we work with as well. There's a massive change that's going on in our business right now. About 9 months ago, we made a monumental decision that we wanted to take all that work that we did with large family offices and foundations and deliver it to this massive generation of people that are mission aligned, many of them defined as next gen. 73% of them say that they want their capital to stand for more than just financial returns. They're voting with their dollars. They're using their capital as a tool for change. They're trying to change this philosophy that's been taught in business schools over the last 20 years, embracing shareholder capitalism and replacing that with stakeholder capitalism. And this is the work that we do. So on February 28th, we are launching New Day Impact One, which takes all of the work that we've done with major families and delivers this to a very large set of mission-aligned investors on a global scale. The first piece of the platform is identified as Inform, which is a learning platform. So regardless of where you are in the world, you can download this application, either in Android or iOS, or go on and do it directly on the web and get informed around these important issues. Our partners will be permissioned to load content directly into the site for the work that they're doing. If you as an individual want to make a contribution, a charitable contribution directly into Blue Community Consortium, you can do that directly on the site. If you want to make a $20 donation to Jane Goodall Institute, you can do that on the site. The second piece of the platform will launch in Q2, which is New Day Invest, where individuals can come in and rather than having to satisfy very high minimums to align your capital with investment portfolios, you'll be able to do it for $500 and set up recurring investments. And every time you walk out of the house, and we all know how important this is to the next gen community. If it doesn't exist on this, it doesn't exist. And you'll get impact reporting, financial reporting, engagement tools, gamification relative to your own personal behavior in the platform. So thank you very much. We are here as a change maker. We're here as a movement maker. We all have the power to create change. And what all of us have said historically is that if we go in and make presentations and people walk away and say, that was really interesting, then we have failed. We want people to take action. And the time is now. Thank you very much.
So we have quite a spectrum of solutions here. We have about 15 to 20 minutes. Are there any questions? Yes, Victoria, first one to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm the academic lead as part of this session, and it was fabulous. Thank you for organising, Caroline. It's great to hear all these fantastic solutions, and I salute you all. That's the first thing to say. I have two key points in general to make, and question. First, actually, there are two key points. Firstly, I'm also an impact advisor for Unitary Venture Capital, SACE, the Italian Export Credit Agency. So it was really fantastic to see the connections you're making all the way through that financial chain to end crowdsourcing of financing all the way to, so thank you. You may not be aware, and I didn't have a chance to say in my opening discussion about the work that we're doing on an international standard in purpose-driven organizations. So the sort of language around impact first, stakeholder capitalism, there is an advance happening at this moment to consolidate, clarify the governance behaviors for organizations that exist to advance long-term well-being for all, and whilst not destroying it in the process. So Dave, you have donut and other things. So this is sort of like, is there a final destination we can agree on? So I just wanted to let you know about that work, because I think it will supercharge all our work, and I'm project leading that process, and it's got a long tail. So if anyone's interested in purpose-driven organizations as the solution, maybe next year I'll present on it, but in the meantime, that. And then the second quick point was, I very much appreciate the work you're doing on plastics, not just plastics. Clearly you are doing so many amazing things. I did have a point to make, though, that I think for me is really important. A lot of the solutions that we are creating are dealing with the mess that we've been left with, the economic system that we have. And when it comes to plastics, it really falls into that category. So I think what's really important is that we have a narrative. I find it difficult, the narrative that plastics are the new freedom and the future, because to me we're dealing with an issue. If we take the energy efficiency of the end use of that energy versus if we were to generate energy in a different way, that's not the way we would design it. But we design it like that because we have a problem. So I think it's amazing. I just think as paradigm shifts go, that might not be the one, for me.
Would you like me to speak to
Yes.
that? It's gotta be. We're stuck with this plastic. It's suffocating our oceans and our people and our systems, and it's not going away. And I imagine cities afloat around each of these gyres, constantly, efficiently purposing, not repurposing, purposing, almost for the first time, all of this mess. It is a mess that we're stuck with, but as Paul spoke to yesterday, the process of coevolution is a response, and it's an interplay, and we have to dance with this mess. I mean, we're stuck with it, and it's not our fault, and it's not our children's fault, but we can set them up to have optimism, to have energy efficiency, and the new technology, the creation of nanofibers and graphene, shows a profit margin. It shows a unit economics that is not, it's far more hopeful than biochar is amazing. If it were on merits alone, we could get all of our diesel fuel from this. We can reprocess motor oils and toxic wastes along with it, but this is the world that we deal with. It's not just sunshine and rainbows in life. It's not war for us. Our lives are not threatened, but our lively enjoyment of life is absolutely threatened here on Earth in a way where we can respond to this with the economic power and the fortitude of really high-tech, strong solutions. And we have to embrace this in a way where we can revel in the clash against the results of our human trend, our entire history, and our future depends on it. In these decades now.
I'll offer a little bit different perspective. We're on track right now that by 2050, the weight of plastics in the ocean is going to be greater than the weight of all the fish in the ocean. Just think about that for a second. We in my mind, are not stuck with it. We can change. We are changing. We can reduce what we use. And processes like Chris and TH have talked about are great for that part that we can't. But I think we need to put the emphasis on reduction as much as possible.
And I would just add too that so much of this is a behavioral issue. And there's so much misinformation out there around what happens to our waste. And people will throw waste in a recycling bin believing that it truly is going to get recycled and it's shipped overseas and dumped in the ocean or dumped on the shores in Ghana. And that has to stop, right? And I had characterized earlier this problem that we have around misinformation and people, the information that people are making really bad decisions on. So that has to stop because we're never going to address this fundamentally unless we do that.
And I think we do have to work on our messaging. We have an investor at our college who is upset with me because he thinks every time I present, I'm encouraging people to use more plastic because I know what to do with my plastic. But I'm dealing with this issue where as a citizen, I have to, the industry hasn't changed. I've got to sequester all that carbon in a safe way, make sure that my children's life is safe. So I'm taking care of 100% of my plastic. But the message has to be, let's stop producing those kind of plastics. And plastic just means malleable. Bioplastics obviously are a solution, biodegradable plastics. We've got to change the paradigm, as you say, but we've also got to deal with the legacy. And I think as long as we're really strong in that, saying we don't want to create an economic incentive for people to say, oh, let's just produce more plastic, make more ethylene factories, right? That's what they do, because then they think, oh, well, you've got an end use for it, so let's be the producer. But I should say that one of the things that we've discussed in our program is it is better to use our hydrocarbon reserves to produce solids rather than burning the liquids. And the release of the carbon to the atmosphere is the big problem with the global warming issue. If we were to say, well, these are not sunk assets, sunk investments, but the oil is there, or the coal, we're going to use these hydrocarbons to create goods, but we're never going to expose them to the kind of oxidation event that burning creates that lets it then become waste into the atmosphere, then there's a measured way that we can take advantage. Because now we know that the oil industry is very emboldened right now, and they think they've got a new lease on life, that they can do whatever they want, and then they're going to look at people like us and say, see, but you're going to use our oil. Say, yes, but we're not going to ever allow it to be burned. It's going to stay in solid form. If it's burned, it would have to be with in such a way that using the pyrolysis and using the syngases, you're compensating by doing carbon sequestration on the other end. But not this wholesale, just burn it every day in your lawnmower, and your leaf blower, and your car. So yes, we're in alignment on that.
Any other questions? Okay, go.
I have a question, not to be too political, but in the light of recent political changes, like what are you guys looking at in terms of your companies, your livelihood? Like what is our plan right now? Because I know we just pulled out a Paris Green Deal, I know we just pulled out a lot of things, so I'm curious of you guys' opinions on that and plans for that.
Great question. We deal with that in the community every day. We have a membership in UNEP, it's a major stakeholders group. We're a UNWTO affiliate. We go to the COP meetings. We are part of the Small Island Network. We go to the SIDS meeting. And this is all global, international. And every one of these groups I just mentioned, the same thing is coming up. We've got to shift now to local. We've got to have local demonstrations, local actions, local initiatives to fill the gaps. Now, I was happy to read this morning that Bloomberg is going to make up the funding loss from the Trump administration, so we are going to benefit some that way. But we can't count on international leaders to solve our problems. We need to be engaged ourselves. There's a new organization my friend Hunter Lovins has created called CopX, and it's a way that all of you can do just what I was talking about. So check out CopX.
Yeah, I'd love to touch on that too. So I run and manage a private business in the state of Florida, and one thing that I see a lot of times based on politics is typically when it's left-leaning, a lot of funding goes to state, NGO, and federal entities to implement work, and more right-leaning times it's more towards private sector. And I think that a lot of times the terminology is different, but the net effects are the same. Aside from some policy and some rule changing, but most of that's been argued out through the judicial system. with the Lotus, new changing the waters of the United States designation. So I would say the big things that you can look out for is a lot of terminology differences, and who's actually turning dirt is different.
I'd also like to share that language is so incredibly important. And we've been going through an exercise at our organization, really trying to meet people where they are in terms of their thinking. And we've used brands and monikers like environmental, social, and governance investing before, ESG, which is viewed by many in this country right now as a woke issue. We had a diversity, equity, and inclusion portfolio that we ran, and one of our largest clients came in and said, you should think about renaming the portfolio. And I can remember thinking at the time, like, I bristled and I was like, rename it to what, right? But there was some real value in thinking through that. So we have renamed it, it's now human equity. We work with a lot of nonprofit partners that have major corporate supporters, particularly in the area of human equity and DEI. A lot of those corporate organizations have taken a step back because they don't want to stand in the way of the one-man wrecking crew, Robbie Starbuck, who's taken on a lot of these corporate organizations for their woke policies, right? But what they're saying publicly and what they're doing privately is very, very different. So they continue to support the organizations that they've always supported, and I think they've adopted this mentality that, you know, we're going to fight headwinds now for the next couple of years on these issues. And the fact of the matter is that none of the stuff that we suffer from today, you know, climate change and all of that, is going away. So it's only going to exacerbate. There's going to be more communication on this, and we're going to have to do more to address it.
All right, question right here.
First of all, thank you, David and Chris, for sharing in those partnerships. I also work with them in XR inclusion, and for the tangible reminder to all of us. For TH, I have a question regarding the trash creep. Is that being able to be used for a building product, or is there a reason that you have not mentioned the use of that as a potential building product?
So at the college level, working with our students, we're not getting results that would let it be load bearing. And we do work with a construction company, and for static paving stones that don't bear a lot of weight, we use the permeable paving molds, grass is growing through. They sometimes crack if heavy weight is put on them. For sculptures, trash-free art that looks like it's not made out of trash, they're perfect for fencing, for benches, for any decorative work. And you can imagine island nations taking care of this and doing wonderful sort of seawalls and things. Anything where there's not direct compression or torsion on it. But that's because I'm not in engineering, I'm in the sustainability department. Now we have Engineers Without Borders working with us, working with the University of East London. There's a thing they do called sugarcrete that they've been successful with, but they're not using cement. I'm 1 part cement, 2 parts plastic shred, 3 parts glass cullet from our glass crushers, or a sand dissolve from our glass, no removing labels. But they're using a mixture of sodium silicate and lime, and we started experimenting. Sodium silicate, by the way, is just glass and Drano, and it turns into a not flammable, very hard, non-carbon containing binder that does a better job of load bearing. This is going to have to be other departments that have big facilities to do the testing, because we've done a couple tests and it's expensive if you don't have the machinery. Certainly other countries have worked on this and made it. I know Germany has got some, recipes for including. The thing is, plastic's not a good binder. It's not aggregate, so you have to be creative. At my level, that I'll end with, is I